Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 3 of Apple TV's Pluribus, entitled Grenade. So far, this show's been a compelling blend of mystery, sci-fi, character work, but I gotta be honest, this episode felt like we hit the brakes a little bit too hard coming out of those first two. Like, while I still found this episode to be quite enjoyable, I thought I spent a lot of time fleshing out an idea that, quite frankly, I didn't find terribly interesting. However, I think as a standalone episode, this one was underwhelming, if I'm being honest. But as part of the whole, I'm willing to bet that what we learned about the others, I guess that's their official name for all of the hive mind people now, what we learned about the others and their willingness to please Carol and the lengths at which they're willing to go to do it, I bet that's going to play a major role in the future, if not the very next episode. All right, so let's break it down what happened in this episode. So we kicked things off with something that kind of took me by surprise, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, or if it messed with you guys, but we see the countdown / clock / timer, and it's at just over 7 years. And I'm like, did we just jump 7 years into the future? That is so cool and crazy. I had no idea that was coming, and I'm all in on that. Only for me to realize that the clock was going down again, denoting the time before the joining, or as I'm going to call it going forward, BJ. But that's an interesting way of alerting the audience to a flashback, right? Like, okay, is the clock going up? Cool, present day, post joining. Is it going down? Flashback, pre-joining. So I like that. So yeah, now we got that out of the way. It's about 7 BJ, and we're in Norway. Helen and Carol are staying at this ridiculously fancy $1,000. I don't know if it's $1,000 a night. She says she paid $1,000 to be there, so it's probably, X amount of dollars per night, or it's $1,000 a night and they got one night. I don't know, but it's $1,000. Did I say 1,000? 100,000. I said $1,000. What? $100,000 ice hotel that it's not even consistently there. Like, it melts in the summer and then it's rebuilt every year by artists. Like, it's crazy. And it's objectively cool. No pun intended. But of course, Carol hates it. It has an ice bed. Helen's enchanted by the Northern Lights. Carol can't stop complaining that it's cold. Helen wants Carol to relax and enjoy herself, but Carol's obsessed with her book's new placement on the bestseller list, and she's hung up on what number it's at. Side note, Carol was way too obsessed with her place on that list, but Helen was weirdly annoying with not just telling her the number. Like, once you get to the point of saying, it's between 11 and 20, why are you being coy with what the actual number is now? Like, it's not in the top 10, so she's not going to be happy whether it's 11 or whether it's 19. Just tell her the number. Anyway. I thought that scene, though, was a very well-written study in contrast. Carol, pessimistic, sees the bad in everything, cynical. Helen sees the wonder, optimistic. And you feel the disconnect that defines their entire dynamic, but it's also kind of like a yin and yang situation. You complete me, if you will. But back to present day. We're now 3 days post-joining. Carol's still sitting in the last row of the plane because, of course, she is. And I was instantly confused because I thought she was going to Vegas on Air Force One with everybody else. But here's the thing. I think that actually it lends more evidence as support to what I was saying at the end of my last video for episode 2 about the show not having done enough to make me believe that Carol cares about Zojia to this degree. I assumed Carol was stopping the plane so that she could get on. I didn't even entertain the idea that maybe she was stopping it to ask Zojia to get off. I like to help Zojia get off, but that's neither here nor there. But I think that's what we're to understand, given how this episode opens. So Carol asks, not how it opens, how we open present day. But Carol asks Zojia about the other unaffected people. Most of them aren't all that noteworthy, except one. There's a Spanish-speaking guy who they didn't even know about until 33 hours in, and this guy still has been hesitant to communicate with them, which, of course, that's going to sound intriguing to Carol, like, oh, he don't want to talk to y'all? Let me talk to him, because we immediately have something in common. But Carol wants to call him, and it turns to this, like, great bit where it's like, she gets hung up on, then she gets cursed out. Well, first time he don't even answer. Second time she gets hung up on. Third time he curses her out in Spanish. And then she calls back and you think it's going to be like she's going to try to continue to get through to him. And she calls back just to get the last word, just to curse about herself. So petty, yeah. but hilarious. Also, yeah. And again, I totally relate to Carol. I could see myself doing something like that. So Zoja drops Carol off at home with her mail, including a package that Zoja says that Carol's gonna like, and it ends up being like this stress massager, and Carol immediately picks up the phone to call the others, to call their hotline and ask what that gift meant to them. And Carol is told they knew it was something she liked, but she thought it was too expensive at the time. So Helen apparently got it for her as a gift for, the end of the tour, the book tour. Carol demands that they forget Helen, all of her, like her memories, her feelings, all of that. Only Carol gets to remember her, which is, it's a moving moment and request, if not somewhat ludicrous. You can request that they stop bringing her up, which she also did that, but you can't request that they just not remember her. Interestingly enough, though, this episode revolves around the lengths that the others are willing to go to in order to please Carol, but they don't honor her request to stop mentioning Helen. So, that's something of note. Interesting. Zoja's going to later bring up this ice hotel scene. So I think it's interesting the lengths that they're willing to go to please her, but stopping at that point. Let me know in the comments if that feels as suspicious to you as it does to me. So the next day, Carol's back in her grief sweats, same outfit, different color, watching Golden Girls. On one hand, that's sad. Like, oh man, she's so depressed. On the other hand, it kind of sounds like my ideal Saturday. But there's a knock at the door. And there's a fancy food delivery with those silver platters with the rounded lid on top. And I love the shot here of Carol's reflection in the lid. And you can't see the camera, even though you should be able to see the camera. Like, this episode wasn't directed by Gilligan, but that was definitely like a shot from his playbook. And this, this meal is from a significant moment in Carol's life. And again, that pisses her off. When she calls the others, they explain that they knew about her fridge being empty because she hired a maid right before the end of the tour. And she tells them that she wants to be left alone, but at the same time, like, didn't she stop the plane to get Zoja off of it? So, like, how badly do you really want to be left alone? You could have let Zoja go to Vegas and be part of my man's harem. But Carol dumps the food in the trash and heads to the grocery store. And now we hit the part of the episode that I'm not going to pull any punches here. I thought it really dragged. The grocery store is empty. The shelves are completely bare. Carol's confused. She calls the others and they say that they essentially consolidated resources for efficiency. And she says she just wants her grocery store back. And of course, immediately a fleet of trucks and all of Albuquerque show up to restock it in minutes. And the scene ends with her just shopping alone like she wanted. And I summed up like 15 minutes in like 5 seconds. And it's like, cool concept, but like, this whole sequence played out exactly how I expected. Like, there were no surprises. There was no tension, just a ton of time spent building toward a moment that I thought was very obviously going to happen from the moment I saw the empty grocery store shelves. Back home over a nice meal and a much louder Golden Girl session, the lights go out all over town. Ominous music starts playing in this moment. I'm like, all right, here we go. Back to business. Time to get tense. But nope, it's just the others testing energy saving protocols. They're a very efficient group running on the leanest of resources. And honestly, if you're having the debate of whether or not you side with Carol or the others, it's kind of tough to argue against, like, we don't even need lights because there's no crime and nobody works night shifts. like this sounds like a pretty great world. But anyway, they turn the lights right on, and they turn the lights right back on in Carol's like immediate vicinity because she doesn't want to be in the pitch black darkness and she needs to watch Golden Girls. They call Carol to ask her like what might cheer her up, and she's like, a hand grenade would help because it would be the cherry on top of the greatest week in human history. And after the phone call, I thought that was a great line, by the way. But after the phone call, there's another shot that I liked, and it was so good that I had to like rewind it because casually watching, I was like, wait, what just happened? And I'm like, wait, did I miss something? I had to rewind it. But Carol goes to pour herself a glass of water to take some pills. Well, she does pour the glass of water to take some pills, but then she pours the water into the sink, like this. And we get the shot of the water flowing into the sink, but it transitions into her pouring vodka into a glass. I thought that was super cool. Really well done. I didn't even notice what was happening the first time. I had to rewind it and look at it again. So anyway, Zoja shows up with a real grenade. Carol invites her in for a drink and they talk. Carol asks how long until she is personally infected. And Zoja says it could be weeks, it could be months. They don't know. And Carol doesn't buy that. She knows that they know more. And she doesn't want to hear any more talk about, oh, yeah, it could be this, could be that. No, you know. But Zojia plays it cool. She's like, it's our biological imperative that we get it done, which I thought was a very nice phrase to use. And then she then gives this metaphor about how if someone was drowning, Carol would just throw in a life preserver to save them without asking, without taking the temperature in the room. Like, hey, guys, you think I should throw this life preserver? She would just do it. And Zojia says that that's what the others did. They want to save Carol because she's drowning, but she's just too stubborn to realize it. Carol then sarcastically asks what it's like to be one of the others as she uses her great skill as a writer to paint these beautiful scenarios, euphoric landscapes, perfect bliss, etc. And then it's almost as if she actually starts to understand it a little, like she's going through it and is like, oh, that does sound kind of nice, until Zojia mentions the ice hotel from the opening scene, disobeying Carol's request to not mention Helen. That sends Carol right back into rage mode, and then boom, she accidentally pulls the pin on the grenade. But of course, it's real, which she assumed it wouldn't be, because why would you bring her a real grenade in a response to a sarcastic comment like that? And Zojia just casually tosses it out the window and shields Carol as it explodes. The front yard, Carol's truck, it's all on fire. Zojia's back. Well, it took a good brunt of the blast as well. Pretty damaged. She's taken to the hospital, and at the hospital, we learn from a DHL delivery guy that Zojia's concussed, but she's okay, and she's resting. And Carol asks why they gave her a real grenade, and they calmly say, because you asked for it. And Carol continues to press the envelope, press the issue on how far they're willing to go. And would you bring me another grenade given everything that just happened? A bazooka, a rocket launcher, a tank, an atom bomb. And this is supposed to be like the big thematic question of the episode. And it's mic drop before the credits roll. Like, how far will they go to please her, even though they have no logical reason to do so? And again, they'll go as far as giving her a nuclear warhead, but they will not stop talking about Helen. And honestly, though, I just didn't find that line of questioning all that compelling. Like, it's clear they'll do anything for her. We've known that. Spending an entire, and everybody who's unaffected, spending an entire episode kind of like testing that limit and leaning into that point, it didn't work that well for me. But like I said up top, I'm fairly certain that when we look back on this episode, it's going to be important within the grand scheme of things, more so than how it feels now. But let me know what you thought in the comments. Do you think Carol's losing control, or does she finally realize just how much power she has? But again, thematically, I get it. Carol's grasping grasping for control in a world that she can't do that, and she can't relate to this world anymore. It doesn't make sense. But narratively, this episode was a whole lot of setup for a payoff that just wasn't very interesting to me. So let me know what you thought in the comments. Like the channel, subscribe, share to your social media, join the Discord, join the conversation, and until next week, peace.